No, yes, hurricane. Let's all joke about hurricanes. There you go. Yes, we're good. So that's good. So that last line was the first line of the recording was let's all joke about hurricanes. Perfect. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome. All right, we're at the wait, hold on. We're at the Drupal NYC Meetup for September. A couple people just got in. Get your pizza. Come on in. Come on in. All right, so welcome everybody. Thank you for coming to the September Meetup. My name is Alex Ross. I will be your host for this evening. We're going to start with just a couple quick housekeeping things. But we have a jam-packed night, so I'm going to kind of fly through the intros tonight. First, please mute your devices. Second, if you're going to be asking questions, someone will be walking around with a mic, so please use the mics when you're asking questions so that everybody can hear your questions. Finally, restrooms. We do have restrooms, which is good, right? It's usually, that's a good thing. Women's rooms are the middle of the stage left hallway on your right. Men's rooms are the middle of the stage right hallway on your left. And then there are gender non-specific restrooms on the stage right hallway on your right. So make use of restrooms as needed. Okay. Agenda, announcements. We're doing those now. Huzzah! Then we're going to have, we have actually quite a few talks tonight. I think we have 6 talks tonight. So a lot of great information. And then a couple quick closing remarks, and everyone will leave and go to the after party, sponsored by Fastly, at Bill's Bar, which is downstairs. We'll talk more about that during our closing remarks. But stick around and socialize, have some drinks on Fastly this evening, and meet some people and talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. Okay, so yeah, lots of talks, 6 of them. Contributing to Drupal 101, creating and re-rolling patches, what is coming in Drupal 8.4? I'm serious, and don't call me Shirley. A dozen, it's actually a baker's dozen if I remember correctly, D8 modules, and then reading between the swim lanes, how to optimize your development workflow with a Kanban. So yeah, we're gonna have a lot of really great information tonight. Yeah, here we go. Real quick, this is a photo of all of the Drupal NYC organizers. We like to put these up here because we want to make sure that you guys know who to come talk to if you have questions, if you have suggestions on how to make this the meetup better, anything like that. Please come find one of these people and give us your feedback. We really do take it seriously, and we like to make sure that we're doing the best possible events that we can. Okay, venue, food and drinks. I finally remembered to change the logo. It's by NBCUniversal. Huzzah! Yay! NBC. Thank you, NBC. Woo! All right. So yeah, we've had this really great space for well over a year now, and we get pizza and soda. So it's really great that NBC is able to accommodate us every month. And one of these days, when you walk outside, say thanks to the guys who hang out there, and they do a lot of work to make sure that we can use this space and keep it awesome. Okay. Also, we have a sponsor for our after party, Fastly. Yay! All right, so we're very thankful to Fastly for sponsoring our after party. Drinks downstairs at Bill's Bar after the meetup this evening. All right, we're flying through. Hashtag and photos. Take photos. We love you to take photos. If you do, please upload to the event page at meetup.com/DrupalNYC or share it on all of the various platforms where one shares these things with the hashtag DrupalNYC. We use it for all of these meetups, all the various Drupal New York City events that go on. So definitely make sure that you are using that hashtag for your photography this evening. All right. Upcoming events. So the big one that's actually not on this list is DrupalCon Vienna, right? Coming up in a couple weeks. There's stickers on the table back there for DrupalCon Vienna, so you can get a sticker and tell everybody you went, whether or not you did. So yes, thank you to the Drupal Association. Neil brought those. There's also Site Building with Drupal 8 is a event coming up in Washington in 40 hours. So if you don't have your tickets yet, it's an easy trip down there. But definitely check that out. Drupal Camp Pennsylvania. I have no idea where it is this year, so check it out, drupalcamppa.org. That's coming up in just a couple of weeks. There's an online/in-person event going on in Virginia, which is Become a Drupal 8 Developer. And it's a lot of beginner-centric and developer-centric discussions and talks and classes and trainings and things of that nature going on. So definitely check that out. That's also coming up in just a couple of weeks. And then in the middle of October is Bad Camp. For those of you who don't know, Bad Camp, Bay Area Drupal, bad, right? We're nice camp. We have nice camp, right? Bad Camp, that's how it happened. So Bad Camp is one of the larger Drupal meetups that's not one of the Drupal cons every year. It's probably the largest. That goes on in San Francisco in the Bay Area, and it's coming up in middle of October. There's always a lot of really great speakers. A lot of the people who work on core are usually there. A lot of kind of collaboration happens at Bad Camp every year. So if you've never been or you're looking to kind of get involved, I highly recommend going to Bad Camp. Interested in speaking. As you can see, we have lots of talks tonight, and they're going to be great, I'm sure. But we always are looking for more speakers. We're always looking for new topics. We're always looking to find topics that people are interested in. So please do let us know. We have a site set up with like a web monkey form thing at Drupal.nyc/suggest, where you can let us know. Hey, I'd love to hear a talk about bananas. We probably won't do one about bananas, but that's cool. Suggest it. It's fine. We do lightning talks and we do in-depth talks. Lightning talks typically are 5-10 minutes, and the in-depth talks are typically anywhere from 15 minutes to sometimes up to 45 minutes, depending on the talk and depending on the subject and how in-depth people want to get. So please do suggest some talks, and please do talk. Yes. All right. Who in the room has given a talk at any event ever? Okay, so everyone who has their hand up should be giving a talk in the next 3 months at this event. Perfect. All right, who in this room would like to give a talk? All right, everyone whose hand is not up right now is going to be giving a talk here in the next 6 months. Perfect. Okay, my kid starts kindergarten tomorrow. Oh my God, my heart's breaking. I know, it's insane. He's starting kindergarten. He's not 5 yet, though. New York City schools are weird. Okay, who's hiring? Raise your hand if you're hiring. NBC is always hiring. Who's who? Front end. A generalist, full stack, top to bottom, soup to nuts. Okay, what's the company? TheHill.com. What's the company? Digital Pulp. Someone else's hand was up. Sales. We're looking for sales. Ooh, that's a good one. We haven't had that one for a while. Company? Zivtech. Philly. Pantheon. Always hiring. Always hiring. Everything. Except sales. No, I don't know. The MTA. What are you hiring? Okay. Full stack. Front, back, top, bottom. Okay. All right. So now everybody knows who's hiring. Anyone who's looking for a job, go find these people. Email them, tweet them tomorrow. Okay. Normally we say take 5 minutes and introduce yourself. We're going to say tonight take 2 minutes and introduce yourself to someone sitting next to you. I will rudely cut you off in the middle of a sentence. So go. Introduce yourself to somebody next to you. Meetup. Yeah, it is. Welcome. Wow. Congratulations. Yeah. Get this man a cigar. That's right. All right. Yes, I do. And grab that. Grab this. Am I saying it right?
Gergely.
Gergely.
Yeah,
Now am I saying it right?
perfect.
I feel bad.
Don't feel bad, but actually, I'm wearing the Chapters t-shirt just
Perfect.
so
Works for Shepherds.
yeah.
All right, and freeze. All right, so Gergely is going to do contributing to Drupal 101. And what do we got? Started his career as a full-time PHP developer in 2002. 4 years and too many lines of custom code later, he decided to use a CMS. He decided, hold on. He finally realized that using a CMS isn't only for losers after all. Okay. And evaluated a few. This was in 2002. That's fair. Okay. All of us that were doing it then had written like 19 different user like registration systems by then, so it's all good. He chose to use the new and shiny Drupal 4.7 purely for technical reasons. He got involved in the community, and he had truly made the best possible choice. In 2012, he co-founded Chapters. Note the T-shirt. Last time I incorrectly said that he worked for Fastly because he was wearing a Fastly T-shirt. This company's become one of the leading Drupal shops in Central Europe, and he recently moved to New York City to build a branch in the United States. Welcome, and take it away. Yay!
Hey, actually, I decided to save some time on creating the slides, so I'm going to create them on the fly. I hope you're fine with that. So, okay. First of all, why should anyone contribute to Drupal? Well, so there are a couple reasons. Of the first of all, of course, is maybe you just want to help people. Like so you start using Drupal, you get it for free, and then you decide that you want to give some back or pay it forward. So you help people. Another reason can be actually it helps your career a lot. Let me show you how. Or maybe this wasn't a good idea after all. So let's see. Drupal.org user. Yeah. So actually, Drupal on Drupal.org. If you have an account on Drupal.org. Your contributions are automatically get listed down here. These are the code contributions, but you can contribute in other ways. Like for example, I contributed translations, or I volunteered at events, as you can see here. So this is something that potential employers would see, and also while you're contributing to Drupal, it's not something you do on your own. You connect with a lot of people. You collaborate with a lot of people during this. So this is also great for networking. And if you're a company owner, or if you care for your company, you by contributing you will also help your company, because let me show you. So. On Drupal.org, on the marketplace, companies are listed. So the list of companies is ordered or sorted by their contributions, and and if you contribute, if you do contribute, then it will help you. It will help. Yeah. So for example, in the United States, Chapters is on the second page. Okay, 2 places behind Pantheon. So this is something that you can do, and it will help you and your company as well. Okay, what else? What else is can be the reason to contribute? Actually, you can learn a lot. So, as I said, when you're contributing, you collaborate with other people, you work with them. Can it be like, even if it's not coding? Of course, when it's coding, you work with other people, you learn a lot from them. But when, let's say, you help organizing events, then maybe this is something new for you, something that is not your usual day job. So you can get new skills just by helping Drupal. And last but not least, you can, make friends and have fun. I have no idea how many friends I got through Drupal. I've been working with Drupal for about 10 years now, so yeah, I spent a lot of time around Drupal people, but still, I can thank a lot to Drupal in many ways. Okay, next slide. So, how do people contribute to Drupal? Actually, I would say number one is, so first of all, you have to get over the feeling of incompetency. So I remember when I started, I felt like I'm a nobody, I know nothing. How could I contribute to Drupal? I'm just not the one to do it. I let other people, they have skills, they have knowledge, I let them do it. But actually this is something that you should get over. This is another way to think. So yeah, you should realize that there are so many ways to contribute. Many of them don't need even any skills. So actually, this is the reason why I wanted to to do this talk. I want to encourage more people to contribute, and I want to show you how easy it is and how fun it can be. So, okay, and there, let's get to the real exact examples of how someone can contribute. There are way too many, and people are coming up with new ways all the time, so there's no way I could list all of them. But, so I decided to categorize them. The first is you can just, help the development of Drupal itself. And the second one is you can help the usage and the adoption of Drupal, so you can help with that. And the last one is you can, if you don't know how to do these things, or if you don't have the time or the skills or the motivation, just help those people who are contributing. Yeah, help contributors. Okay, so let's see how you can do these things. And you know what? I'm going to just switch to my speaker notes, and so we are actually going to speed things up. So we will go from the easiest to the most the most complicated things. The easiest way to contribute is just sponsorship. So pay people to contribute, or pay people who are already contributing, or pay sponsor events where these people meet, and just help with money. That's the easiest and the fastest way. One other things that one other things you can do to help is organize events. Of course, organizing like a big camp, it takes a lot of time and effort, but just organizing a meetup is not that doesn't take that much effort and time. And the last one is you can volunteer at these events, so that doesn't even need any upfront effort. You can actually I've volunteered at several Drupal camps. Basically, what it takes is you just show up. You can help at the registration desk, so you can register people, hand out the badges and the T-shirts and whatever. Or you can become a room monitor. So what that actually means is you have to go to one of the rooms. You can pick one of any session, so you can go to one that you would go to anyway, and show up, make sure that the sound is okay, everything is okay, and nobody is blocking the entrance, and you have to count the attendees after 15 minutes or 15 minutes into the talk, and that's it. So this is something anyone could do. No preparation is required. Okay, so how can you help with other people? How can you help other people to use Drupal better? You can provide documentation. Even if you're not a coder, you can document how things should work. You can train people. Just share your knowledge, like by training or presenting or blogging. You can creating online tutorials. You can share case studies. Actually, this is also something you can do on Drupal.org. I don't know if you know this, but if you have a good case study, so if you finish a project and you're very proud of it, here are the case studies. You can share it with everyone else, and maybe potential customers will switch to Drupal because of it, or at least they can. Maybe someone contacts you and wants to work with you, so you get business by this. So anyway, these are the ways you can contribute and to the adoption of Drupal. And helping on Slack and forums. This is another one I wanted to share with you or emphasize. I don't know how many of you know about the Slack channel of. There is one for New York City. And there is one for Drupal in general. My favorite channel is the UX channel. There are many very interesting conversations are going on this channel. So you can go you can join Slack. You can go to this channel, participate in the conversation. You can help people who have questions. You can ask questions yourself. You can. This is a very good way to make contribute to Drupal, basically. Providing tools. I don't know if some people are providing tools, and I wanted to show you ones because not many people know this one. I don't know if you've ever used Simply Test Me, for example. This is, you know what? I will get back to this. Okay, so what are the ways to contribute to the development of Drupal? Of course, if you're a coder, you can easily write code. Well, not easily, but Drupal development is not easy and not easy to get into. But still, if you have the skills and the motivation, you can definitely contribute code to Drupal. This is something that another reason why you should forget about this. So anyway, it's coding, but there are many people who code, and not many people designing. So this is actually one of the criticism regarding Drupal is that the user interface could be friendlier, and the administration interface and the whole user experience could be better. So that is why my favorite channel is the UX channel on Drupal Slack. So this is something that anyone could get into. You can just, share your opinion. You don't have to be an expert. Those people, and this is something that I had to realize, many people contributing to Drupal are not experts. And so anyone can help. Anyone's opinion can move things forward and improve things. So I encourage everyone to help, and if I have a couple more minutes, I wanted to show you two more things. Actually, so testing. If you want to help, so for testing, you don't really need to understand the code. You don't have to be a coder. You can just go to the issue queue of Drupal. You can find an issue for yourself that is already done. It's already a finished patch and just needs review. And okay, I'm not going to pick one right now, but so you can filter all the issues and pick one. Let's say, I don't know, let's say we want to test this one. I can go here, copy the link to the patch. So yeah, I'm going to test Drupal. So Simply Test Me helps you with testing without installing anything on your machine. So you have Simply Test Me. You can select which version of Drupal, and you can apply a patch. So from this issue, I'm copying the URL of the patch, and I can just launch a Drupal instance with that patch applied already, and I can just verify if the patch works or not. So this is something anyone could do. It's like this easy, and you could actually get core commit mentions for this. You could be like, this would be a really huge help because it's easy and still like it takes time. And the last one is translations. I'm, as someone whose first language is not English, probably many of you have never seen this page, but there's actually a page for and an infrastructure for translations. So let's say we want to translate Drupal to Hungarian, which actually I've done before. You can do it here. This is a very easy to use interface. You can just string by string. You can suggest translations. Of course, there is someone who like verifies them, but this is it. So yeah, that's it. I don't want to take up more time, but to sum it up, contributing is very easy. There are so many ways to do it, and you will feel better afterwards. So thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. One thing I'll say is that at NBC we have a rule that if you hack core or if you hack a contrib module, you have to create a patch for it and you have to put it up on Drupal.org. Even if it's not something you ever expect to go in, because you figure the only reason you're creating a patch is because either there's a new feature you want or you found a bug. Let's have the community take a look at that patch and say, oh, that's a great patch. It'll just, be a huge, enormous security hole for you. Right. Okay. Our next talk is Chloe Lee, who is right there in the back. So she's going to do a talk about creating and re-rolling patches, which is a great follow-up to the talk we just had. Chloe is a software engineer at DoSomething.org. I didn't know that. We'll have to talk about that. Do you know I created the first DoSomething.org? I hired Aria. There you go. The largest organization for young people and social change. Prior to this, Chloe was on DoSomething.org's marketing team for 4 years. She became fascinated by her coworkers on the tech team and started to learn to code on her own. A few months later, in an effort to support women in tech, DoSomething.org made all her dreams come true by sending her to the Flatiron School Coding Boot Camp, and she returned as an engineer. In her free time, Chloe enjoys home goods shopping, cooking, and eating anything with buffalo sauce on it. I appreciate that. Okay, go ahead. I have to give you the mic back.
Great. Hi, everyone. So that was a great segue into my talk today. So it's just going to be going over a quick walkthrough of how to make a Drupal patch and then also how to reroll. Great. So we can get started. Okay, so who am I? Again, I'm Chloe. I'm a software engineer at DoSomething.org, and DoSomething is the largest organization for young people in social change. And so, again, the fun fact, I was a marketing manager beforehand. But basically, I wanted to do this talk because I did my first patch about a year into being an engineer full-time. And my workflow was really, I had only contributed to my organization's code base before. I was really just used to GitHub of making PRs and then merging them and getting reviewed by my peers. And then our app, actually, we needed some changes, and so my coworker said, oh, well, you'll just create a patch for that. And my heart just kind of stopped, and I was like, what do you mean just create a patch for that? So I was so scared, so nervous, and then with tons of support from my coworkers, I saw that it's not so hard. So that's kind of why I wanted to do the talk today, and hoping that it'll help somebody else out there who might be scared of patches. Okay, so I'll go over quickly what's a patch, how to make a patch, just a walkthrough, how to re-roll a patch, and if there's time, any questions. So what's a patch? So a patch is code that fixes an existing issue or creates a new feature. So for me, it was really helpful to think about basically a pull request like in GitHub, and it has the extension .patch. Applying the patch will fix the bug or create a new feature. And then something that came up that I thought was useful was an interdiff. So I had never heard of that before, but basically it's a text file. Patches are just diff files, so sometimes if it's a big patch and you're making a lot of changes, then it can be kind of hard to follow. So just basically the interdiff describes the changes and allows for a more efficient review process and kind of targets and gives the reviewer a little bit of guidance. Actually, one question that I came up where I asked when I was doing my first patch was why is it a patch system instead of something just like a pull request or something? And I did I found on Drupal.org actually that there's a huge discussion and a many-year-long discussion about this as well. But if anybody else is interested too, Drupal already has a system and the Drupal workflow, which is creating patches, to do that. And so to remap all of the categories would be a huge overhaul. So that's something that I learned along the way. And if you're interested in that, reading more about that, it's on Drupal.org. Sorry, I just lost my notes there. Great. So then part 2, how to make a patch. So first of all, don't duplicate the issue. So just go to the issues page and search the issues to make sure that it doesn't exist already. And if it doesn't and there's no patch, then you can go ahead and create a new issue to upload your patch to. The second step is to download the most recent dev version. So you want to get the most recent dev version because bugs should be fixed here to make sure that they don't appear in new releases. And if the bugs isn't in the most release, it's likely that it's already been found already. So you'll need to backport that into the version you found it in. And there's some rules around backporting, but basically that the backport issue will be the child of the parent issue. But then, so you go basically to the page of the modular theme, and under the title, you can click version control and then get the version you want. And then also under that, the third box there, just copy and paste to download the module. Then you'll want to create the patch on your local branch. So to create the patch, you check out the branch, and the convention is to do the issue number and then just a brief description of the patch you're making, so what you're doing. And you can get the issue number from the URL. Then you're going to want to code and test, and once you're ready, you can create the patch. So we're almost done, so not so scary after all. So again, just make the changes, test on your own branch, and commit the changes, commit your updates. So once you're done, so to create the patch, it's actually just that line there, the git diff, and then the version, and then that little caret, and then patch name.patch. So if you go down to your issue page, you scroll all the way down, and it'll be a box like this, files, and there's usually a button there that says patch name suggestion, so you can, super easy. I'm terrible at naming, so that's awesome for me. And then you just write that and then .patch. Upload it in the file section, and then change status to needs review. And that's basically it. So not so bad, but then after I did my first patch, I was like, phew, not bad, but then I had a suggestion to re-roll a patch, and then I was like, oh my god, there's something else. But then after all, that's not so bad as well. So we'll go walk through that quickly. So what is re-rolling a patch? So sometimes code will update and you'll no longer be able to apply the patch cleanly. So that's basically just a merge conflict. And this happens because, so patches don't automatically just get rolled into the next release. And that's because there's a lot of them, and so usually it'll be waited till there are many patches, and there's a mass of them to upload all together in the next release, and then the security team goes through it. So sometimes, it gets out of date. So that in that case, you'll need to re-roll a patch. So as always, first step is to make sure you have the latest version that you want to re-roll the patch to. And then just check to see that it actually needs to be re-rolled. So you download the patch and try to apply it. So you can do this with git apply the flag check and then patch name.patch. So that flag check is interesting because it won't actually apply the patch. It'll just check to see if it's applicable to the working tree and detect any errors. So like this GIF shows, if you press enter and nothing pops up, then it doesn't need to be re-rolled, but there we saw an error, so we'll continue. Maybe. Not sure what's wrong. I don't know if it's my internet.
Do you mind if I?
No, go ahead.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, thank you.
Looks like it's missing that GIF. Go back to what you were just saying. So that GIF is missing, and so it's having trouble with the whole.
Okay. Maybe I'll just go through this then here.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so, oh, there it goes. I think. Oh, yay.
Yeah.
Okay, now I lost my notes, of course. Sorry about this. Okay, so we want to check out the branch from the commit before the patch was committed. So you can just on the comment page in the back there, it'll have the date, and you can just use git log -1 before that date and to check out your own branch with that previous commit. Then you want to try to apply the patch cleanly. And again, just do git apply, and this time use the flag index and then patch name.patch, and the index flag will actually apply it, the patch if it's able to, and then also if it's not, then return the errors again. So if nothing's returned, then it worked and you're good. But if errors show up again, then you'll have to use the git log again and just go back another commit until you're able to apply the patch cleanly. So then you commit the changes to your branch and add the patch. So it's good convention to do note the issue number and the comment in the commit message. And again, you can just get that from the URL of the issue. Then it's just your basic solving merge conflicts. So rebasing, fix your merge conflicts in your editor, your text editor, and then continue. Then you'll want to actually create the re-rolled patch. So again, we saw this before. Git diff, your branch name, the description and issue number, and the comment number, again, from the URL is the easiest place to grab it. Test it again, and I like to just use check again to make sure that it's able to be applied cleanly. And if so, that's it. So then you upload your patch to the issue page, describe the changes in the re-roll that you made, and then don't forget to change the status to needs review. So that's basically it. The resources I listed here, they're mostly from Drupal.org, since that was a quick walkthrough, and I used some blog posts. And I don't think I forgot to load the slides for the resources, but I will add it to the meetup page. And that's all.
There you go. Well done. All right, thank you. That was great. Okay, Eric Sod, where are you? Here you are. All right, while Eric gets his computer opened and plugged in, Eric is going to talk about what is coming in Drupal 8.4. And if everyone was paying very close attention during Gergely's presentation when he went into the Slack channel, that workflows just got into 8.4, so maybe you'll be talking about that a little bit. Okay, so Eric started his career in typesetting. He's also worked as a graphic designer, a desktop support engineer, a technologist in print management, an astronaut, a desktop software developer, and finally, a software engineer in web technologies. Currently, Eric is a senior Drupal developer with Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, where he works on a large Drupal 8 website. He spends his work days doing module development and attending to everything required to run an enterprise-level website. Eric Sod, ladies and gentlemen. I did that too quickly, and he's not plugged in yet.
That's okay.
There we go. Go!
Okay, good. We'll probably look at it this way. Thanks, Alex. Today we'll be talking about what's coming in Drupal 8.4, and we'll be sticking to core, what's happening in core. Okay. Thanks so much for the introduction. This is about the same as what I had before. What Alex said, in addition to being an astronaut, I was also a butcher, a baker, and a candlestick maker. But I didn't want to write that down because, I don't know the room. It could be a tough audience. But that's the joke. The rest of this is serious. No, only some serious. Okay, we've got about 20 minutes and we've got a lot to cover, so let's just dive right in. So I figured the lead here is the dates. People want to know when. So this is the when of Drupal 8.4. Okay, what we'll be talking about here is we'll be looking at the experimental modules and what's happening with them. There's words here that everyone can read. This is straight from the references. How does everything look on the page? Pretty good. Like I say, I think, Chloe, that was a very good idea, putting your notes on the phone. I think I'm going to do that next time because I've yet to master this, how I can get a presentation and do my notes. So I saw there wasn't enough time with that. Okay, so these are the experimental modules in 8.4. We're going to go through each of these, and I'm going to give a little demo on little mini sites. Okay, let's get started. Everyone can see them. I'm going to give enough time for everyone to sort of browse as we go. Okay, so we'll start with content moderation. Okay, so let's put this up here. So when we have content moderation, right, when we don't have content moderation, when we have the modules enabled, but we don't have the configuration set up, this is what your standard node add page will look like. Okay, we go quickly into the workflows, right? As we can see from here, that we can add workflows, and it comes the core modules come with one that's already preloaded. Lots and lots of options. We're going to quickly add content moderation to our content types. Okay, now when we go back to our node add page. Okay. Oh, I missed it. All right. Here we are.
Are there any UX developers in
Now
the room?
we can see that. Now we can see that this has a save as draft. Okay, so let's save a content. Article 1, that's all we need for the purposes of this demonstration. And we can see how this looks. A little bit different than what we've been used to seeing. Can everyone hear me okay? Good, okay. So we have this here. This is pretty obvious what's going on. We can add a log message and change its moderation state right from here. All right. Well,
expected that time.
yeah. Let's try saving it from here. Okay, so now we have a publish node. Okay. We have a lot to do, so I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to just keep going. Okay. Okay, date time range is another module that is stable. It's in Drupal 8.4. Maybe not the most exciting module we've ever seen. The most exciting thing we've ever seen, but it is something that Drupal has wanted for some time. Okay, date time range looks like this. When we come into, it is a field, my event date. Okay, this is it. starts and ends. This is something we didn't have in Drupal before, right? The default printing on this is like this. Okay, and for those of us, I don't have the SQL Pro set up. We go here just to have a quick look at the layout, just to show everyone that. Right. So this is how the data will look. Looks like pretty standard Drupal stuff to me. We've got a field that is my event date value and my event date end value. There you go. Okay. On to the next one. Okay, inline form errors. Okay, this is also the status of this one is also stable. Okay, all the must-haves have been addressed. There are 3 should-haves. So let's take a quick look at inline form errors. I have to check my notes, excuse me. Yep, here we are. Okay, so I've changed this field to be, why is it not where I expect it to be? Neutral images. I've changed this field just to accept TXT files. There's an inline form message, right? Same like here. Same like here. Oops, I go to submit. Okay. Oh. Go to submit. And we see inline forms. This is again something that we didn't have necessarily in Drupal. Stuff used to be all piled up at the top here. So this is also a stable module, and I'm sure they'll continue to develop those last few things, but it is stable. Layout discovery is another core initiative. Okay, we can take a moment to read that in case people don't know what layout discovery is. It is what it says there. Okay, so let's see it in action. So when we go to this node, we start with it in default mode, right? We have a node here, we have a piece of content here, has an image, has a body, has content. Okay, since the module is enabled, when we go into our content type manage display, we see that there are now these new, well, what do we call these? We call these regions? I guess so, we call these regions, okay? So the idea here is I will make something beautiful. I will drag the body into the second. Drag the image into the third. Okay. Oh, one thing I didn't show is this here. This is the additional field that we will see on the managed display. Okay. This has all of these are default, and then I followed the tutorial and I made new ones as well. But anyhow, what I've done is I've rearranged the presentation of that page in this display. Go back to my node 2, I believe. Yep. And as you can see, things have been changed around. That is layout discovery. Okay, something that is an initiative. It is stable. The field layout module, which is what makes this field. What makes this field is still not stable, but I assume that they're working on it, closely to get it done. Again, it's a thing in Drupal. People have worked hard on that. Okay, media, the media entity. Okay. Oh, I seem not to have my link set up on that one, so let's just scroll. Let's just zoom down there. Okay, data range. Media, here we are. Okay, so we'll take a moment on what's happening here with the media entity. Okay, Mai did a very comprehensive presentation on this earlier in the year, and so I'm just going to touch on it briefly just to sort of like get it in front. This is going to be a part of core. That's the plan here. What it is this. Okay, so when I go to create a piece of content, Oh, it's the lightning. That's right. I tried to extract it from the lightning distribution, but I wasn't able to. So it's still tightly tied into that. So does everyone know what the lightning distribution is? That's a distribution that Acquia is using to bundle a lot of new Drupal functionality into. Okay. So when I go to add a page, I now get this. This is something that we have not seen before. This is a field. As far as we're concerned on the site builder side of things, this is a field called My Media. My Media contains the library of all of my media. I select a piece of media that I want. I add it. I add it. This works both with tweets as well, and a lot of different types of media content. I'm going to need to title this. I save the field, and I guess we're still in draft or whatever, right? And so this is in fact my content. This is in fact my media, but it's not printing the way that I necessarily would expect it. This isn't, of course, the tweet as well. Okay, that's what's happening with media. Let's see if this works. Good. Okay. All right. Migrate is another one. That's very close to being stable. I suppose that's important that migrate be stable, but everybody does do custom migration. I've never done a migration that isn't done as custom work. Okay, I have a few notes here that I experienced. If I tried to drush this in, it didn't work. So I just went here. So if you will allow me, I will do a quick demonstration of that. So we start here with a migrate. We see there's no content. We have a Drupal 7 site. Okay, Drupal 7 site has content. It has a view. This is a view block. This is there's a taxonomy in here. Okay, there's terms. Okay, that's Drupal 7. We go back to Drupal 8. We would like to migrate that. I just do it again. This is a site builder's presentation, so I'm just going to use the UI. Okay, very important stuff to read here, I'm sure, but we're not going to necessarily stop. Right, we're just going to queue it up. Right. So 127 is a particular thing for the Acquia Dev Desktop. Your usage will vary. T. Advanced option because I'm on 33067. I have public files. Okay, again, more information, lots more information. Everyone will want to read that as they do their migrations. Batch process runs. And there you have it. Block is not present on the page, but the block is there, right? That's our content, right? We see idea parata C, right? Clatu barato, and there it is there, right? It's kind of nice, right? Structure block layout. Okay, so let's just add the block back in. Using content. Save. Okay, I never know whether I'm supposed to save a second time, so I always just do. Back to site. Here we go. Duis said Turpus. Well,
That was a live demo of a migration.
Yeah. Pretty awesome, right? Pretty awesome. Not for me. I'm just running the machine here, right? There we go. ABC. There's your taxonomy. Let's assume I tried this with theme, but I didn't see that was happening. Like you would generally, I think the setup is you would want modules that match. So I was thinking that maybe, so I tried with Bootstrap theme on Drupal 7 and Bootstrap theme on Drupal 8. Nothing at all. Just didn't do it, right? If you'd like, we could do this in Drupal 6. Works pretty well in Drupal 6 too. But like I say, maybe not, right? Has anyone looked at Drupal 6 lately? Would you like to? Look at this. Oh my God, look how far we've come. Yeah, and it works about the same. I actually forgot how to put images on Drupal 6 pages, so that's it. Anyhow, yeah, that's that. I think we'll skip the Drupal 6 migration. Just take it from me. It really, that works pretty much about the same with Drupal 6. Okay. Place block, something that is also, this is interesting. This will be interesting for the presentation here, because these words here are good for us to have a look at. Because the way experimental modules are going to be handled is changing a little bit, and I think that change was precipitated by this, precipitated being a fancy word, was brought about by what happened with this module. So I'm going to demonstrate what this module is in a moment, but as you can see, as you read through this, right, the idea is not to leave this as a separate module, okay? And so that's where it opened up the discussion for that, how to handle. Oh, we have place block. Here we are. Okay, so place block, you can enable the module. Or what they're saying here is you can still enable the module this way, but it will be hidden from the UI. Okay, so once we have place block, we get this interface. Let's place a block somewhere. Okay, I don't know. How about well, this will be confusing. Let's go to a node first and place a block. Okay, that might help a little bit. Let's try placing one here. I think there's a recent content in here as well. Yep. Place the block. Save the block. Okay, now I'm off on this page where I have to save twice because I never know. Let's go back here to the site. And there we are. It will place the block on the site in this region. And that's what we just saw. That's the place block, which will become. We're just about out of time. Okay, so we must look at settings tray. Okay, this is the coolest thing ever. Okay. Something we haven't seen. This is settings tray. Okay. Okay, so I want to change. I want to turn off about us, and I want to put team at the beginning. I save, and voila, settings tray. That's another initiative that we're going to see. We will have tremendous usage in, say, the admin side. And I think that's everything. I can't see what you're holding up, Alex. I don't know what that is. 5 minutes. 5 minutes? Oh, 5 minutes. Okay.
But it said that 2 minutes ago.
Yeah. I didn't hear that part either. So, yeah, that covers everything. I think I noticed that workflow in what Gerge was showing in his Slack channel, that workflow was made stable today. That's everything. I can try to answer any questions. I don't know that anybody wants to see the Drupal 6 migration, so I skipped that, right? So if you have any questions, I'll try and answer them. Go ahead.
So, which of the ones that you showed are still experimental in 8.4 and which are going to be stable?
Okay, that's a good question. We would want
And as a follow-on or maybe a precursor to that is, do you want to just give a quick description of what that means, that a module is in core but it's experimental?
Okay, so I thought we were doing that here, so I wouldn't repeat what WebCheck has written. So let's see. So can we read this, or should I read it aloud? This is what experimental modules are. And as far as answering your first question, Jeff, I think I labeled each of these like content moderation. We know that workflows is now. I'd have to go through it. Like your question requires, from me, would require like a spreadsheet answer sort of a thing, right? Because I mentioned that like daytime range, this is stable. I know I'm not the most exciting slide maker, perhaps, right? This is stable. Media, of course, is still not stable. Migrate, they're trying to get as stable as possible. The first page, again, it's.
Can I just, are you asking just generally the concept of experimental modules? So, do you want to answer that? Do you want to just?
Yeah, generally to try and put words around it. All right, someone else can take that.
Sure, I'll take it because I have a microphone already. So basically, they realized during the Drupal 8 development cycle that there was a bunch of functionality that they want to get into core, but they don't feel is ready for prime time. They don't want to They don't want to put it out in core and say, here's a module, use it on your production site and for your business that you're putting your life savings into, and only to find out that, nah, once we actually started having people use it, it wasn't really for core, or we realized that it's got problems that are never going to be solved, or some other reason that they want the option to pull it out later without totally screwing everybody in the world. So that's really the impetus behind the experimental module idea. It also came kind of part and parcel with the new release cadence, where we're not waiting for Drupal 9 for 12 years, right? We're waiting for the next major point release rather than, or minor point, minor, whatever. The next point release rather than a full-on, Drupal 9 release.
So did you mention also that APIs are subject to change while modules are still experimental?
I didn't, but that's a great thing to mention.
Well, I talked to Ted Bowman because I'm using the system tray a lot, and he was really clear. He's like, they can make changes at any point. It's not 8.4 to 8.5. It's any release an experimental module can change and just break. Like, they're allowed to break it at any point, so you're on your own if you use it.
Yep, that's exactly right. So they are basically washing their hands of, we broke your site.
Okay. Any other questions?
All right, well, I'm gonna say no just because we want to keep it going. All right, thank you, Eric. Well done, well done. Seriously, a live migration demonstration. That doesn't ever go well. Okay, here we go. Jeff Markell. Jeff is going to give a talk. I am serious, and don't call me Shirley. It's important that you see how it's spelled, S-H-U-R-L-Y. Okay, so Jeff is an IT manager and software architect at Johnson & Johnson. He's been working software development since 1980, starting out at IBM on some acronym that I'm not going to go through. The first commercial virtual machine operating system written in assembly. Since then, he's been a Java programmer in the financial services and warehousing logistics industry, and a C and C++ developer, creating embedded databases, full-text search engines, interactive voice response systems. He was a developer and the first webmaster for one of the first commercial websites in the world, Astronet, in 1995. Started back in Drupal 4.7 days, Drupal developer for many companies, from a one-person shop to worldwide enterprises. Jeff has learned far too many programming languages over the last 40 years and forgotten almost all of them. APL, anyone? Nope, I have no idea what APL is, so there we go.
Yeah, no one wants to know.
Nah, yeah. All right, Jeff Markell, everyone. Woo!
Let me get this going. Great. So that's me. I'm Jeff Markell. Alex very graciously introduced me. So this very quick presentation is just about one module after hearing about a whole boatload of them, and we'll hear another boatload from Sean in a couple of minutes. So the reason this is called I'm Serious and Don't Call Me Shirley is because it's this module. There's a module called the Shirley module, and as you can see, it's from the way the title was spelled. Let me go back for a second. It's Shirley with a URL in the middle, and the Shirley module is a URL shortener. And we all, whoops, what happened here? There we go. Everybody who's used Twitter or just about anything, any social media knows about URL shorteners. Tend to use them to do things like save space. When you're stuck with 140 characters, you don't want a 100-character long URL, which you can sometimes get, or even longer. For example, this Google Maps one, this may not even fit in a tweet all by itself. I'm not sure, but it's pretty long. And even in like an SMS message, they're limited, I think, to 160 characters. So you really want to shorten your URLs. The Shirley module is essentially a private label URL shortener that you can create in a Drupal site yourself. The reason you might want one is for branding. For example, I work at Johnson & Johnson, so we might want to direct people to a long URL for a product, say on the Listerine site, buried somewhere in the site in a deep link, and you may want to shorten one, and rather than having it be a very long convoluted URL, you want something that's just jnj.com/Listerine mouthwash or something like that. And you may also want it just to ease things if you're doing a private one inside your own company intranet, just to simplify things so you can easily pass around URLs within the company. So there is the Shirley module. It's been around for a long time, since 2010. It was created for Drupal 6 by Lullabot. Jeff Robbins at Lullabot wrote it. There are versions now for Drupal 6 and Drupal 7. There's a Drupal 8 version that's still under development. I poked around at it a little bit and haven't had a chance to go back, so someone else is working on it at the moment. But that's a hint. If anyone wants to take a look, there's a good opportunity to do some work on a contrib module. So let me switch over to show you what it does. So I created a, how do we get this to show in the right place? Hang on. Hello. Sorry. Bear with me here. Here we go. Unfortunately, let's see. Get to. Now I can't see what I'm doing, so let me make this bigger. And let me see if I can find it. All right, so, sorry, where'd it go? There we go, sorry. All right, so it's very simple, like all URL shorteners. You just type in what you want, and optionally you can, let's do one, say for google.com, just to make it easy. And if we just hit enter or shrink it, it creates this little short one here. And if I copy it and paste, and it goes back to Google. I cannot see. Sorry. Hard to see up there. All right. So let me log in. Let me get out of full screen here so that I can see what I'm doing. Oh. Drag this back over here if I can. just trying to get this so that I can see it. Yeah, this is.
Of your mirroring, it's what?
No, that didn't help. There we go. All right. So let me log in here. And as an administrator or any user on here, it'll show you the URLs that you created as you. And it shows you how many uses it's had. There are admin pages to administer all the links that were created. In this case, there are a bunch. Here's the one that I just created. The example I gave earlier of the Google Maps one, if we just click on, and I just called it My House, was the short link. And I click on that, it just shows you my house. That's really, there are some admin functions to change the way the module works. You can set what URL you want it to be, the base URL to be. If a link gets deactivated, and I can show you that in a second, you can direct it to a particular 404 page not found link that's different than the one your site normally uses. You can set up a bunch of different things to forbid creating short links to your own local host or certain IP ranges. If host names are unresolvable, it won't allow you to create a short link for it. You can set up rate limiting, set it up, you can limit for anonymous, authenticated, or administrators. It's quite straightforward, and if we look just quickly at the module list for this site, pretty much nothing is enabled. There's really, it's just kind of the basic Drupal modules. And really all you need for this module is the Shirley module itself and views because of for this. That's really.
Permission behind the US make it authenticated? Sorry.
Yes, you can.
You can require permissions on the use?
Yes, you can set up the permissions to make it authenticated. You can make it administrator only if you wanted to, but if you wanted a public URL shortener, you could do it the way I did. I just did it for demo purposes, but normally, say for an intranet or something like that, or using it for business purposes where you want to make specific short links for your business, then you would want an authenticated user or some other role besides anonymous to be the one to do it. Yes? 5 minutes. Okay, I'm almost done anyway. So if you create you can actually, this was a sort of cool one that I liked. You can create glyphs as your URL. So this is a URL. This little, I think it's Mars. So if I click on that, it just takes me to example.com. And, sorry? You can put in the Unicode value, or you can grab it from some, like on Apple they have the viewer of all the different glyphs and characters that are available, and I did it that way. So you can, as I said, you can disable things. So if I go back to the home page, and it shows me here that I have these, I've created these. If I delete one, let's just delete the glyph one, and I say yes, and it's now, doesn't show up on my page anymore, but if I go here to the administer, it does still appear. It just shows as deactivated. If I try to go to it anyway, or I'll go to another one that's been deactivated, this one, and I'll just give you a 404 page. Crickets. And that's really it for the Shirley module. Like I said, it's still under development for Drupal 8, and if anyone wants to work on it,
How does it handle duplicate short URL, short names?
it does not allow them. So if
This allows them.
yeah,
And then is this just offering redirects? So if you're using your own domain, it's just basically a redirecting service?
yeah, and it just keeps track for. You can set up there's an additional module that comes as part of the package for analytics, so that you can set up various sorts of analytics for using the short URLs. And it does keep track for you, so you can also see how often they've been used. And that's it.
Are there any other questions? Well, let's give a nice round of applause.
Thanks.
I'm going to multitask. Let's see how well this goes. So, next up, we have Bada Sean. Sean Duncan has been developing solutions with Drupal since 2009 and is an active member of the Drupal NYC community. He's married and has 2 young adult daughters. He and his family are proud residents of Brooklyn, New York, the global definition of renaissance and success. He is also an active contributor to Drupal, both through contributed modules and bug fixes to core. Outside of Drupal, Sean is an ordained priest in the Episcopal Church. He enjoys computer gaming and recently began learning to fly fish. Let's welcome Father Sean. Sorry, the talk title is 12 D8 modules. Good luck, you have 15 minutes.
What do we have for display? Display board? Cool. My laptop's old. Yep, works.
Okay, I'm going over a dozen-ish or so Drupal 8 modules that we're using all the time at the moment. Some of these are about to become superseded, as you'll see from Eric's talk, so some of them I'll go over really quickly. And I can't talk about some of the use cases that I'm going to talk about without referencing the fact that there are some things that are already in Drupal 8 core that were modules in Drupal 7 that we couldn't do any of these things without. One of those is the entity reference field. That's a module in Drupal 7, but it's integrated throughout in Drupal 8. So the first one is block visibility groups. And I wanted to use this module page as also to give you some pointers about when you're looking at modules. And when you go to look at a module on Drupal.org, the first thing that I look at when I scroll down is I scroll down to the bottom. How many sites are using it? Is it stable? Have they opted into the security team coverage? Now in Drupal 7 was out a long time. I really thought long and hard about putting even a beta level module onto production. We wouldn't be shipping any Drupal 8 sites if we were restricting ourselves to only to only stable modules, but I look at them really carefully if they're not, if the author doesn't think they're stable. Of course, the media initiative never made it to stable in Drupal 7, and we used it all the time. So those are some of the things I look at. I also look at how many open issues are there, and I might also click through to the issue queue to see, okay, so there's only 19 issues, but if 3 of them are critical, this module doesn't work, then you might move on. So what does this module do? Let's look over here. Let's see. So this is the block configuration page for a Drupal 8 site with block visibility group installed. And if you've ever placed a block in Drupal, you know that a block is placed and it'll either appear on all the pages, or maybe you only want it to appear in certain places. And it appears in those certain places based upon conditions. So in this particular site that I'm showing on the screen at the moment, we have 3 blocks that we want to show together. And without block visibility groups, you would have to go into each block and click, 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 click the same conditions, and maybe you've got 9 blocks that you want to appear together. You're doing it over and over and over again. These blocks are all applied to the academic researcher display visibility group, and I can configure their conditions over here all together, and then I assign a block to this visibility group, and it inherits all of those conditions. That's all it does, but that's awesome, and it's a very stable module. Easy breadcrumb. Breadcrumbs have always been tough. They're much easier in Drupal 8 and integrated into core, but you still often have some things that you want to be able to do. Like, I don't want if my path, the breadcrumb module typically breaks the path up. Like you've got /this/b/c, and if those go places, it turns them into breadcrumbs. If one of those doesn't go anywhere, do I still want the word to show up? Do I want it to disappear? That sort of thing. That's all configurable from the configuration of this module. It produces a block, labels you, put breadcrumbs where you'd like them to have them on your page. This isn't a module. This is a quotation as a prelude to a module. Many of you are probably familiar with this proverb. There are 2 hard things in computer science: cache invalidation and naming things. A module that we couldn't be building Drupal 8 sites without is paragraphs, which is really a bad name for this module. But I don't hold that against them because naming things is hard. Paragraphs might be better titled sections. So here's the overall problem that paragraphs solves. Once upon a time, there was a body field, and then we added WYSIWYG, and you could dump anything you wanted into it. And that was great as long as websites appeared always in this geometry on this thing. But if you have, let's see, go in here. Should have had more pages open. There we go. So here's a little grouping. Here's a grouping. And you want to be able to, when the display gets small, you want to be able to have that rearrange itself. Get rid of that menu. You want that to be able to rearrange itself. Well, you can't do this sort of thing as a front-end developer if that markup's not structured. So what the paragraphs module lets you do is it lets you define the pieces that someone might use to build a page and turn those into a small thing and give those structure, give those them their own fields. And that gives the markup structure so that when you're trying to do responsive design and then you have as a front-end developer, you have things to grab onto, you know exactly where they're going to be. The image is always going to be at the top. It's always going to precede the title. I know exactly where it's going to be. And so the paragraph module creates these entities. They only show up inside other content, but they're completely fieldable entities. Awesome module. which you really can't use very well without inline entity form that lets you edit the paragraph in the middle of the node. We can't talk about awesome modules in New York City without talking about Focal Point. Did Alex leave the room? Oh man, this is Alex's module.
Alex escaped.
Alex escaped. So, let's see, do I have one set up? Yeah. So, what Focal Point, I have a field here, no, let's go. The Focal Point module, what it lets you do is, it lets you define a point on an image I'm not going to take time to click around through the fields. But what it lets you do is it lets you define a point in the field that's going to be the place in the image you always want to appear. And when you're doing this sort of image processing and responsive design, the image might change sizes between breakpoints and so forth. And we're going to resize the image, but you've got a site, even if you've got only 35 pieces of content, and each one has only 2 pictures. Well, with responsive images, you've got like 70 images that you're probably going to be producing now, and you want to do that. You want Drupal to do that for you. You don't want to have to go into Photoshop and crop this image 70 different times. But without Focal Point, what you get when you crop is always the middle. Focal Point does a calculation to figure out where the focal point that you designated was, and when it crops, it does everything it can do to make sure that that click point shows up in the picture. So your pictures always look pretty decent when they're machine curated. That's Focal Point. So we saw media entities are going into Drupal core. We use a combination of media entity image, media entity browser, which also was in Eric's demonstration. So I won't talk about those too much. They're still contrib modules in Drupal 8.3. I want to talk about this module. Now again, naming things is hard. If you're writing code for Drupal 8, you see this module named Field Formatter. Field Formatter is an entire class of plugin in Drupal 8. Why is this module called Field Formatter? It does a very, very specific but incredibly cool thing that I actually want to just, I had an example of it. I'm going to go find it because, let's see, it's here. So here I have a paragraph. I have an image, a field I'm calling image. It's really an entity reference to a media image entity. This is how the media library works. All the images are fields on an entity. All those entities make up the library. Without the field formatter module, if I want to display this particular image entity in a particular place, in a particular way, with a particular set of image styling, I have to create a view mode, a display mode. Because core entity reference has what a display or a field formatting setting of render the entity. And if all I want is the image out of the media entity, then I make a view mode for where I'm going to use it. I put the field settings in it, and I set the core entity reference to be rendered entity, and I pick that view mode. That was a lot of words, right? That sounds really complicated, right? Field formatter gives you a field formatter that lets you do this. So here's my entity reference field. This is an entity reference field, and I've chosen field formatter with inline settings. And then I choose the field, and then I get the field settings as if I were on the original entity. I'm configuring, I'm just like sucking the field settings for that field type into the place where I'm referencing it. No view modes. It's just incredible. It's a little module. It's incredibly cool that it does that, because now I'm not maintaining 15 view modes for all of my media entities. I just using the fields like I always use them, taking out an entire layer of complexity. Yeah.
Or just one, this is just like pulling just the image. You can get the like body field as the alt text.
It's a one-trick horse.
Okay.
It does one thing.
It does it well.
Well, actually, it has a couple field formatters in it. This is the one I use. There is another formatter which I think what it does, it might do what you want it to do, where it pulls in some view settings. I haven't played with it at all. I just saw this and I thought, I want this. But yes, that module also it does a link thing, and it does a field formatter from view display. I haven't played with it. I don't know what it does. Responsive image styling, also in Drupal core. So the idea of responsive image styling is we don't always look at websites on a device that's this big. Sometimes I look at a website on here, and to have a picture 100% width on this display, I need something like 1200 pixels wide. Unless I'm on a Retina display. If I put a 1200 pixel wide image on this display and it's a Retina display, it's going to look pixelated. So I really need a 2400 pixel wide image. But if I'm not on a Retina display, I don't want to download the 2400 pixel wide image. And if I'm on my phone, I really don't want to download a 2400 pixel image. Responsive image is a technology that tells the browser, you can set things up to tell the browser, I have these 9 images. You know how big you are. You know what your capabilities are. You get the image that you need. This is in core. It requires setting up one image style for each of the different sizes images that you're going to need. I recommend using actually a spreadsheet. Make the breakpoints in your website the columns. Have a row for 1x, 1.5x, 2x. Figure out what your dimensions are. Make an image style for each one. This is in core. And I don't think we could do responsive sites without them. Path Auto. Path Auto does a really specific thing, but you may be so used to seeing this function that you really haven't thought about that this is a Silicon Chip module. So let's see, search and metadata, URL aliases. It adds this tab onto the URL aliases section of configuration, and it sets up patterns for your URLs. Drupal's native URL is /node/number all across the board. But you would like your URL to be something like, media guidelines /awesome article that I wrote. That's what Path Auto does. You set up a pattern, whether that's taking patterns from the menu or from the type, and it generates aliases for your URLs. And configuration split. So Drupal 8 configuration management, it assumes you're moving the whole site all at once so you can manage dependencies. So all the configuration comes in, the whole site. That's it. But say you don't want views UI and database logging turned on production. You only want that turned on dev. Configuration split solves this problem. You define a split set. Again, naming things is hard. So configuration split uses the idea, or uses the name blacklist. It's really not a good name. I would call it set member. Things you put on the blacklist go in the set, and they're only on when the set's on. And so what configuration split lets you do is take your big bucket of configuration and make some small buckets, And every time you load configuration, it loads all the common stuff and the stuff from the currently active split. And so, yeah.
So the blacklist sounds like the opposite of what it should be more like a white list then. It's what's you're opting in on.
What you're blacklisting it from is the common pile. If you put it on the blacklist, it takes it out of common configuration. And you could have the same item in 3 different buckets of 3 different splits, blacklisted from the common configuration, or only one. It treats them all separately. And it works with Drush. To use configuration split on the command line, you have to have the very latest version of Drush. So keep your Drush updated. And newly stable, I haven't had a chance to really use this yet in Drupal 8 project, was a workhorse for me in Drupal 7 page manager. It's become much more focused. It just basically is a routing variant conditions manager at the moment. But let's say you have this problem. I want one home page to be visible for anonymous users and a different home page for logged in users. Page manager will do that. You define the same kind of conditions you use on blocks. But instead, think of them on routes. That's what page manager does. I think that's a baker's dozen of Drupal 8 modules that we're using all the time. Questions?
Questions?
Yeah.
Does the focal point solves the image cropping issue? I don't know, maybe there are other modules that will, let's say if you want to crop a picture, sometime it will crop the head.
Yep, it solves that problem, exactly.
Does it solve that problem?
That is the problem it's built to solve.
Is it built in Drupal 8 or is
Yes. Yep. I won't take the time. I didn't have enough tabs set up, but yes. If you click on the right between the person's eyes, it won't cut off their head. Anybody else? Okay, cool.
Thank you. Thank you, Father Sean. Up next, Jody Hamilton is a full-stack Drupal expert. She does technical architecture, strategy, development consulting, and developer training. Jody has worked on hundreds of Drupal projects since she began as a freelancer in 2006 and co-founded ZipTech in 2008. Jody grew up in Philadelphia area and graduated from Harvey Mudd College in California in 2000. Please welcome Jody Hamilton.
So my talk is sort of generally about moving faster in your development process, how to be more efficient, and some ways to think about that. So I'm going to be talking about Kanban boards, but some other topics as well, and just thinking about your overall development workflow and how to crank things through faster. So it's called reading between the swim lanes. Swim lanes are what rows are called on Kanban boards. And we're just going to kind of use the concept of Kanban boards to kind of think about how we can move code faster up to production. So I'm the CTO, co-founder of ZipTech.com, and also an owner of Provo CI, which I'll be talking about a little bit later. Has anybody read this book, The Phoenix Project? Okay, great. Well, it's pretty much a must-read for anybody that works in software. It's a novel, not like a wonderful novel, but an okay novel. But the idea of it is to kind of introduce you in story form to the concepts of DevOps. And one of the things that I really liked about it was it helps you picture your software workflow like a factory workflow, and teaches you a little bit about all the optimizations that have been made in factory efficiency over the centuries, and how you can apply those types of lessons even to software. So even though when we're building software, we're always kind of building something unique, some bespoke product in a way, and we tend to think like, oh well, we're not a factory. It's always different every single time. There are still ways that you can learn efficiency lessons from factories. Like imagine that your factory is a little bit more like a custom violin assembly line. You know, things are always custom, but there are some patterns that you can still think about. And the things that we're going to try to optimize for in this software assembly line are quality, efficiency, predictability, meaning like you can do a release and nothing crashes, flexibility for changes, and transparency, so nobody's getting upset because they don't think you're doing your work. So this is a basic idea of a Kanban board. It can be on a whiteboard, it can be with sticky notes. Most people use software version because that way you can work with remote teams and you don't have to get up and walk over to the board all the time, even if you are in the same room. I think the industry standard is really to use Jira. I'm sure people use all different systems. I can show you an example of a board that I am working on. Let's see. Okay, so here's like a project that I'm on. You can see we have columns like to do, in progress, needs internal review, needs client review, done. And then you can see who's got each ticket and which column it's in, and then you can kind of move things from one column to another and reassign it. You can see that when things are almost done, they kind of pile up over here and done. You can see at a glance, like if somebody has a lot of tickets or if they're piling up in one place. So it's just an alternative way of looking at a list of tickets, but the point of it is to help you visualize what's really going on with your workflow. And I think it was invented at the Toyota plant. So it kind of comes from like the manufacturing world. So when you look at the work that way and you can visualize it moving across the board over to the done side, I like to think of it as it's sort of like a relay race. So when you're doing obviously a great athlete, when you're doing a relay race, it's not just about how fast you run, it's also how fast you pass the baton, right? So if you fumble your hand off, that's a big problem. So you can picture that as this moves across. It's not just how fast you do the work in each column, it's also, are you handing it off efficiently to people when it's going to the next column? Or do they not even realize that it's stuck on them and now it's just sitting there, right? One of the big things they talk about in that book, The Phoenix Project, is bottlenecks. So when you have an assembly line, like we do in a typical software project where you have design work being done, then you have back-end development, you have front-end development, you might have testing, you have deployment, you have all of these like stages that might involve different people. It's an assembly line. And when you're dealing with an assembly line, in order to make things move faster through the flow, the only way you can do that is to go after the bottleneck. So if you try to speed up some part of the process that's not the bottleneck, it won't actually change the overall rate that things are moving through the system. You have to find the bottleneck and you have to go after that. So you can identify bottlenecks in your process by just looking at your Kanban board. So you can kind of see like if there are certain people who tend to have lots of tasks on them all of the time. Does anybody have someone on their team who like always has way too many things on their list to do? And what kind of role does that person have? Are they like junior or senior? Right, they're always senior, right? And that's because those are the people that are the hardest to scale. And that same thing happens in a factory assembly line, where you'll have like a machine or a station that's the hardest to scale, and that's where you see the work piling up. And so you'll see that in your process. And if you can't find a way to help reduce that bottleneck, you'll never be able to move the work faster. You can get more and more interns to do the site building, but if everything's piling up at code review, it'll never go through faster. So one of the authors of that book, The Phoenix Project, Gene Kim, also published a bunch of articles, and this was an interesting one. He calls it the 3 ways or principles underpinning DevOps. And the first way he describes is to emphasize the performance of the entire system. So when you're emphasizing the performance of the entire system, that's when you would be seeking to increase flow by reducing these bottlenecks. And another part of it is never passing on a known defect. So you don't get to say, hey, we're going to fix these bugs at the end of the process. You always have to make things as high quality as you can before you pass them on. Another thing that you can see really easily on a Kanban board is work in progress. So work in progress sort of sounds like a neutral term, but in factory optimization, it's sort of it's a bad thing. So if your factory floor has piles of work filling it up because they're not quite done yet, that's really bad. Okay, because that gets in everyone's way, makes everything more complicated and slows down the whole process. So an example of work in progress in your daily life, for me at least, I always have clean dishes in my dishwasher. So that means the dirty dishes pile up in the sink, right? Because I have work in progress. And then that kind of screws up the whole cycle, right? That happens whenever you have a lot of development work. So, for example, in Drupal core, you'll go to the issue queue and there'll be 100,000 open issues. So how can anything really smoothly move along like that, right? By the time you look at one of the issues, it's you have to re-roll the patch again and again and again because nothing's moving smoothly. So if somebody has, or if your whole team has too long of a list, it will tend to make you slower and slower and slower until you kind of ground to a halt. So ways to minimize work in progress, knowing that it's basically toxic. You need to try to have the most efficient task size, which is typically smaller tasks. So to break things down smaller and try to get them all the way through to done. And you want to prioritize finishing over starting tasks. So lots of people enjoy starting tasks. They might not enjoy finishing them. But if you care as a team about getting work done and doing a good job, you have to prioritize finishing. So I like to look at that Kanban board as you move over to the right side where it says done, things are getting hotter and hotter and hotter as they're moving that way. So they become like a hot potato. So the farther they are to the right, the higher the priority is to get them all the way done. And that's how you can minimize your work in progress. Another way you can minimize it is to get earlier feedback, because if you get feedback towards the end of the process, that causes rework to go all the way back to the beginning of the process. The smaller you can make this left-moving work, this rework, the better, right? So you don't want to get all the way to the end, then do QA, and then send it all the way back to the beginning. You want to get the feedback as soon as possible. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. And I always like to focus my team on deployment-driven development. The goal of your work is not to start a ticket and work on a ticket. The goal is to get it done, right? So everyone needs to be focused on that. Okay, so the second way that Gene Kim describes is to amplify feedback loops. And this all kind of ties together, right? So if you're amplifying feedback loops, you're getting the feedback earlier and not having as much work in progress as a result because things aren't moving back as much. So the feedback loops are right to left, meaning on the Kanban board. So if someone's doing a review, then they would then move the ticket back to the left. So the goal of a process improvement is to shorten and amplify feedback loops so that corrections can be continually made. So I like to think about, when you're optimizing these workflows, to think about timing, because I feel like there's sort of a best and worst time for everything that you do in these processes. So I just thought of a whole bunch of things that happen that you have to think about. When's the best and worst timing? We're always working with people, clients who maybe haven't been involved in a big web project before. So they have no idea. that they're doing things always at the worst possible time, right? So we have to kind of, set them up for, when is the right time for these things, right? So as you look through these questions, I feel like a pattern emerges, right? So when's the best time to do code review? Anybody have an idea? If somebody sends you a ticket, they ask for code review, what do you think would be the best time to do it? Like right now, or tomorrow, or next month, or maybe right before launch? Yeah.
Usually has been true as soon as you do the code review as soon as that feature can be tested.
Exactly. So as soon as possible. If you do your code review as soon as possible, the developer already has it in their mind, right? They're ready to talk about it. They're ready to get that feedback and rework it. If you wait, now they have to be like, wait a minute, I kind of remember this ticket. Let me get back into that, right? Now you've lost all that efficiency. Plus you've wasted a bunch of time because it's just sat there. When's the best time to get client feedback on what you're doing? As soon as possible, right? The answer to most of these is as soon as possible, right? So that's kind of how, the timing for most of this stuff works, is the worst time to get it would be right before launch, right? The best time would be immediately, right now, right? Your deployment planning should not be done right when you do deployment. You should have had a plan the whole time. It's not like a surprise that you're going to have to deploy it, right? You could have been planning that from the beginning. There's some things, like for example, cross-browser testing, where maybe you're going to get some savings by waiting and kind of doing it all at once. So that is sort of like the counter example. But in general, when should you bring up a concern? When should you ask for help? When you feel it's an issue, right? You shouldn't be waiting for these things. There's only one thing on here that you should never do. Anyone know? Exactly, having a meeting. Meetings are terrible. No, you should have a meeting, if you clearly feel you need to have a meeting. But, I just think if you have a good process, you shouldn't have to have tons of meetings, but that's just me. Okay, so thinking more about your Kanban board, I like to think about how does the Kanban, the columns there, so typical columns would be like to do, in progress, needs review, ready for deployment, done. How does that map up with your Git workflow? And how does all this map up to your different environments, like your dev environment, your staging environment, production environment? Everyone developing on your team is going to kind of need to have some mental model of how these things all map up. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of confusion, right? So a basic Git workflow, no feature branches, would be that after a developer starts on a ticket, they do their coding, they commit their changes, they ask for a review. If they have to redo something, they go back to coding, and finally gets released. A more advanced, what I would recommend, of a Git workflow is for each developer's work to be in a separate feature branch for each ticket. And so in that case, they're committing to a separate feature branch. Then the lead or another developer does the code review, maybe in a pull request on GitHub, before you've actually merged the code to master, and then you release it. So the advantage there is that nothing is getting merged until it's getting reviewed, right? So you're moving the review up before the merge. So whenever you can kind of move things to the left, whether that's review or testing or whatever, it's called shift left testing. Like if you can shift work to the left and make it happen sooner in the process, that'll be more efficient. So the way that I usually look at the relationship between the Kanban columns and the Git flow is that when the ticket is in progress, you're working on your own development branch, your feature branch locally on your local machine. When it needs review, that means there's an open pull request, typically in GitHub or a similar system. And when it's ready for deployment, that means that the reviewer has merged it into the master branch, but it hasn't necessarily gone up to the live production environment. So then the issue is with the environments. When it's in progress, that's typically just on the local machine of the developer, which is not great because no one can see the work but them. When it needs review, it's still not really visible. You have a pull request, but you don't necessarily have an environment where you can see the work. Only when it's ready for deployment, you've merged it to master, is it necessarily on a dev environment where anyone can see it. So that's a little problematic. So I'm going to give you a dramatization of why this is problematic. And the little yellow areas tell you what Kanban column you're in, okay? So here I am, I'm leading this project that I'm saying something, I guess. I'm assigning a ticket. My developer is working on the ticket, he puts it in progress. He's still in progress. The project manager asks him how it's going. In progress. He says it's done, so now it moves to needs review. So I get to review it. So I'm going to check out the branch on my local environment, and now I'm going to run the drush updates, the config stuff, and deal with a bunch of issues there. And then I have to manually test it myself, even though I'm probably the busiest person. And I find it's not even right. There's problems. So now it's going back left, back to to-do. So he's scared. I don't know why. But I'm annoyed. This guy doesn't know what to do. He's just, worried. I don't know. They're very scared. I don't know why. And then so finally goes back to needs review, comes back to me again. Luckily, this time it works. Of course, I have to do all that testing all over again. And now it's ready for deployment. Okay. But did you notice there was no client? We're in client services. This whole time, the client never even saw anything we were working on. Neither did any of the designers or anybody. I was the only one that even saw it. Right? Because I was the only one that was able to check out a branch on my local machine and do this and that and the other thing, right? So I'm doing all the QA. And now the client finally sees it, now that I've already tested it twice, and he wants some changes. But it's already all been merged, right? So there's various things that have been merged, but he only wants us to deploy some of them. So that means we have to go and cherry pick all of these commits out in order to send some of them up there. My developer is like, I don't even know how to do that. I'm a junior developer. Goes back to me again, the bottleneck. So that's why we got into this idea of automated QA sandboxes, which I think is an idea that's coming out from a lot of directions, and a lot of people are getting into this. So the idea with these automated QA sandboxes is that you would get an environment created for you every time you make a pull request, automatically, so it doesn't take up anyone's time. And that amplifies the feedback loop because it makes it easier to get feedback before you do the Git merges. It enforces deployment-driven development patterns and prioritizes frequent and easy deployments, which decreases the work in progress because people have to be working on the deployment the whole time in order for these environments to be right in the first place. It complements automated testing, which improves quality. It increases flow, and it shifts the testing left, right? So, in Drupal space, there's a bunch of cool automated sandbox systems. I think Platform SH supports this concept, but every time I look at it, it just seems kind of expensive to me. I don't know, is anybody using that? No? Oh, yes? Okay. Pantheon has multi-dev. I know a lot of people use that as a sandbox environment for each ticket. They also have this Circle CI configuration where you can sort of make it more automated, the way it spins up the sandboxes. I've been using that for a while just to kind of try it out. It's kind of slow. Circle's kind of slow unless you pay more money for it, but even still it's I find it a little bit slow. The multi-dev, spinning up the multi-devs is kind of slow, and sometimes it fails. But it works okay. Tugboat is a product made by Lullabot to solve this problem. I haven't tried that. What's that? Okay. Open Dev Shop is something John Pugh, who probably comes to these meetups, that he makes, that I think supports, is open source. It supports these automated sandboxes. Some people kind of roll their own systems with Jenkins and things like that. I'm not going to make a big sales pitch, but my other company is Provo CI, which makes these automated sandboxes, and I think is the fastest and cheapest solution. And so this is the new workflow when you're using these automated sandboxes. Starts off the same. Same face, same hair. To do, I'm assigning the ticket. He's still happy to help. He's coding, it's in progress. He opens up a pull request, so now it needs internal review. Now that's what's going to spin up the new environment automatically when he opens the pull request, because there's GitHub integration and Bitbucket integration. Then, this is different. The project manager gets to check it himself. He's not going to do the code review, but he can make sure that he completed all the work he was supposed to and it looks okay. He can be more of the product owner instead of just like administering the budget, right? So he's checking it. He sees it looks good. Now he can send it to the client, because now it's really easy. You don't need a local environment. You just get a link, right? The client can look at it. The client can say, hey, you need to change this color. You need to do that, whatever they want. And then once they're satisfied, now it's ready for deployment. Then they finally send it to me for code review. So I don't have to code review it every time they adjust it. I code review it after everyone else says it looks good, right? So that saves me as the bottleneck. So finally, I just merge and deploy it. And I'm not even doing anything on my local machine anymore. I'm just looking at the code in GitHub. So that reduces the bottleneck and helps things to move a lot faster along. Everyone's happy, blah, blah, blah. So, to review, without the QA sandboxes, the problems were that the integration environment, usually master running on dev, has a mix of things that may not yet be vetted by clients. It's a hassle to preview a feature branch. And another problem I didn't mention is that if you have test content that you need in order to really see the work easily to preview it, that tends to get lost all the time because you're always like wiping the dev environment with the live one. And then with QA sandboxes, the integration environment being the dev environment only has work that's already ready for deployment because everyone's already approved it. So it's easier to review things, more people can be involved in review, can have actual QA testers instead of just using engineers for that. And the test content doesn't get wiped, so you always have what you need to see there. And deployment steps have always been verified, so you don't have to worry about having, weird deployment problems.
Are there any questions? Well, let's give another. Oh, hang on.
So we've been a Provo customer from pretty much early on, and I'm just wondering how you solve one particular thing, which is that, so there's the sort of canonical database that feature branches spin up from, but then as the application grows, that canonical database no longer has good test content because now there's new features that don't have content, and the database needs to be updated. And I know how we're dealing with it, but how do you deal with keeping that upgraded without that becoming a chore?
Yeah, so like the basic way is kind of a chore, which is just that you would just have to get a new database and upload it again. And then what we try to do is just like always give it the same name so we don't have to like change our Provo steps every time. And we've actually been able to like teach project managers to be able to do that, so they can do that like as part of their testing instead of making the developers do that. But you can make a command in your steps that calls out somewhere else to get the newest database. So I've done that with Pantheon projects because you can use like a terminus command to get like the latest copy of the database as one of the steps that you're going to do instead of like uploading the database.
Okay, yeah, I've done something similar with a drush command. I extended SQL Sync, so when I'm updating my local, also push it up.
Yeah. But I think there is a command in Provo to like to send assets up to the asset receiver, so you could like work that into like a Jenkins job. But
cool.
There's no
okay.
real simple.
No
way
magic
of doing,
bullets.
yeah.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
give another round of applause to our speakers tonight. Risking my life of being too cheesy, I really, really learned a lot tonight. I hope you guys did too. So a few announcements before we go. Our next meetup is October 4th, the first Wednesday of the month. Same place. We are going to be here for forever, okay? I hope so. If you guys have anything you'd like to see, any kind of talks, it's drupal.nyc/suggest. There's a form, fill it out. If you know the person and actually have contact information, it's also included in the form so you can tell us and we'll get in touch with the person. After party, Bill's Bar and Burger is just downstairs. We can all go together. I hope so. I hope you will join us. It's sponsored by Fastly. Thank you, Fastly, again. That was it. So let's go downstairs. Rock and roll. Thank you.